I'll try turning my camera on and back off. Okay, see if that makes a difference at all. Because sometimes it just is that. That's really what he is. He's like right-wing Steve Shives because he only wants people to think the way he does or he blocks them. But let's get back on track.
Good evening. Quite enough to eat today?
Boy, I'll say.
Well, that's great. Would you care for ham or beef?
A little both, I think.
All right.
I had to put most of the grease from the food in my hair to keep it under my head. Please forgive me for that. The manager said he'll cut my fingers off if I tell anyone that there's been cockroaches in the kitchen since 1932.
Making friendly conversations like this is a big part of greeting and serving guests.
Not anymore. Now if you try to greet anyone at all, if you work in customer service or if you even work as a server in a restaurant, they're probably going to think you're trying to rape them, considering the fact that everyone thinks every person that comes into contact with them is a fucking rapist. And no, I'm not being serious. But like a lot of the hyperbole is just because, unfortunately, it's become a big fucking thing in like the past 10 years that people have been losing their shit over accusations left and right. Now, let me just say this before we continue. I stand with Max. I do. And the reason I stand with Mama Max about all this shit involving his exes. Yo, Drake Diggler wannabe. What do you want to... Yeah, a douchebag at the counter. What do you want? It's one of the reasons I could never work in a restaurant is because I just lose my patience with stupid fucking customers. Like, as much as accommodating as I try to be to most people I run into, my patience does have a limit. And all I would do is just lose my patience with someone making an ass of themselves when they're trying to order food. Now, this is something that I've seen. I have not experienced it, but there was one time I was actually picking up pizza for the family to have something to eat because we didn't have anything that we could make. And what happened was, the dude that was at the counter started screaming at the poor chick that was behind the counter ringing up his food. Because apparently he didn't factor in sales tax or anything else that gets factored in. And what happened is when it was more than the money he had on hand, instead of just using his card like most people do to try to pay for the difference, he instead decided to start screaming at this poor teenager until she almost broke the fuck down. And of course, now, I should have done something about it at the time, but at the time I didn't know what to do. Well, the thing is, we're able to prove that, like, given the fact that Max has actually provided a lot of evidence to prove that those things that they're saying are complete shit, because if you think about it, the way Olivia talks to him, like, that's not the way a rape victim talks to their rapist. Like, saying, don't ever contact me again, like, shit like that. That would be more consistent with that story. Because if you say a bunch of things that make it seem like you're more, I guess you can say, copacetic with the person who you claim victimized you, it kind of takes away from the whole thing. It doesn't make sense. It's not consistent with the whole idea of what this person supposedly did to them. Just like Lulu, aka Twigs, who was hanging out with Max when they were only like 2 years apart. Like, she just barely turned 18 around the time that they were actually physically involved. So the whole pedophilia and grooming shit is completely fucking bullshit. Not to mention she knowingly came with him. Oh yeah, I remember, Doomer, those whole things were stupid. Unlike a certain tree who sub-bots his channel and threatens to take us to court, son, you've earned those subscribers legitimately. Like, that's the thing, I don't even feel like I really deserve accolades, to be honest. I don't deserve accolades for doing something that anyone could do. The only reason I made it this far is because I didn't let bullshit deter me, and I actually tried to be funny and entertaining instead of just reeing at the top of my fucking lungs. Alright, let's get back on track.
At other buffet-style restaurants, guests often feel they're on their own. Once they've paid for the meal, no one pays much attention to them. At Old Country Buffet, we work hard to make sure our guests never feel that way.
Even in the bathroom, we will follow them and help them wash their hands just to ensure they don't contaminate our food with their dirty, disease-ridden fingers.
As a carver, you spend a little more time with guests or team members. That means you have a great chance to make them feel welcome and appreciated.
As much as I appreciate what they're trying to do here, it doesn't really sound great considering the fact that this is from the 70s and this is from a fucking era where prostitution and drugs were pretty much almost out of the back end of almost every goddamn restaurant.
By greeting the guest warmly and holding brief conversations as you serve them, you say to our guests, "We're glad you're here." Let's
Otherwise, we couldn't keep our fucking doors open.
take a closer look at greeting guests. Every conversation you hold with guests should begin something like this.
Good evening.
Or,
Hi, how are you?
once you've greeted the guest, start a brief conversation. Try asking a question the guest can answer in a sentence or two. You might ask,
Try answer it. Okay, so I'm not allowed to ask them about like Newton's theory of Newton's laws of motion, for example. Like I would just love to do stupid shit like that where you just annoy someone just a little bit, ask them a weird fucking question, and just see how long it takes them to just know if you're screwing with them or not. Yeah, I'm sorry. For some reason, my camera's having a fucking stroke. It's either I fucked it up or it's just not having the best time. Hang on a minute. Like, I don't think that's gonna do anything, but you never know. If everyone wasn't fucking everything that moved and filmed it, there was drugs. Just all the drugs in the 70s. Exactly. Like, the 70s was like a really hedonistic part of American history. And that was before it was like a decade before Satanic Panic made everyone baptize their children everywhere they went. Oh, you just walked out of a porta john? Hang on, dunk you in the fucking holy water. There you go. Now Satan can't have your soul.
ask something like this.
Peace be with you.
Is
Have
it
a nice
still
day.
hot out there?
Or this.
Did you catch a game last night?
Or this.
Have you tried the lasagna? It's my favorite.
I forgot why I'm here. This uniform is actually too tight, and this fucking ascot's strangling me. Help me.
Don't forget to hold quick conversations with our younger guests, too. Children often play a big part in deciding which restaurant their parents visit.
Is your mom single? Just like that. Just like that. That kid is not coming back.
We want them to feel welcome and special here, too.
If your kid feels special, it's probably because they have a fucking dunce cap on their head during school. Do they even have those in the 70s? I think those were gone long before, but you can't help but wonder.
So start conversations with children by saying something like this.
What grade are you in at school?
Or this.
I don't think anyone should ever ask a kid that unless it's someone in your family. We can't stop it. This is lasagna country. It's bitch lasagna country. We cannot be here. It's too dangerous. It's like, yeah, you might not. Don't talk to the kids at all. At all. Just say hello. How are you? Thank you for coming in. Please be sure to tell your parents to come back to the restaurant. Like normal things like that. Don't ask the kid personal questions. That's fucking weird. But then again, this was the 70s and TCAP wasn't a thing yet.
Have you decided what
I feel bad for this poor son of a bitch.
dessert you're going to have?
Or this.
Do you like hot fudge sundaes?
I got a whole Sunday bar in my basement. Oh, fuck no. I got a whole Sunday bar in my basement. Popsicles, too. Fuck no.
Once you've held a brief conversation, it's time to move on to the second half of this shift duty.
Did you say conversation or crustacean? Because part of me thinks he's going to hold a lobster up in the air for like 2 seconds and throw it back in the tank.
Serving the guests. Begin by asking,
Would you care for some ham or beef?
Ham, please.
once guests have chosen what meat they want, you'll carve a slice of it. Exactly.
It's almost like the name carver automatically implies that you will be used to cut meat.
What size of slice you will serve will be a judgment call on your part, unless this makes a special request.
Just a little bit, please. Thank you. That's too much. Stabs him.
We don't limit the cook in half. We do, however, manage it to reduce haste. Here are some guidelines for knowing how much meat to serve a guest. When your guest's plate has very little on it, carve a full cut. Lay it over the bare portion of the plate.
That way it looks full. Like, the funny part is, I actually know exactly why they do that. It's actually an aesthetic thing. They do it so that the customer is more pleased with it, because in the customer's mind, if the plate looks full, it actually appeals to them aesthetically. So it might little part of the brain that likes things being organized, it might actually prompt that part of the brain to enjoy it. Why do I feel like the training took place before filming? Well, probably, Oleander. It was the 70s. Everyone was fucked up at every time. But yeah, like during the 70s, like during this is like an aesthetic thing that a lot of people do, even in the arts, when they're doing food photography for cookbooks. Is that they always try to make the food, in the plate look as full and as organized as possible, so that it appeals to people who have that particular aesthetic taste.
Children usually prefer smaller portions. Carve them a...
Unless you're a big fat fuck at 5 years old, you roll yourself out of the fucking country buffet like you're a ball with fucking legs attached to the bottom. Like, they're funny just because you can make fun of them so much, because there's so much there that's, like, ripe for comedy. Like, unintentional comedy, unintentional hilarity, that's what a lot of these fucking are.
Smaller cut. Place it on an open section of the plate.
There you go. That's enough to feed you for a day.
If your guest's plate looks like this, quarter cut or a half cut of the meat the guest requests.
There you go.
Sometimes guests will tell you exactly what size of cut or number of pieces they want. Other guests will ask you to carve a slice thicker than our usual dime width.
Then it's your job to tell that fat bitch to sit the fuck down before you stab her in the fucking face, because other people want to eat there too. And no, I'm kidding. I don't actually have like some sort of fucked up hatred for people that are big. But I do feel like people need to be responsible with their dietary choices. I shouldn't have to pay more money for my medical insurance because someone else fucks himself up.
These guests all feel they're getting more when getting a thicker cut.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
yeah, an extra 2 seconds of that bowel movement, that'll make a difference.
The thin cut ensures them a tender piece of meat, which is why we carve dime thicknesses.
I have a question. Who's just sitting in this restaurant with a fucking ruler measuring like, all right. Oh, too thick. Try again. Perfect. Like someone's just sitting there with a fucking ruler, like one of those fucking table like clamps that they use to have a built-in ruler on them, so they're just measuring the fucking cuts as they're going along the table. Could you just imagine how tedious of shit that would be if that was legitimately a training thing for this?
If a guest asks you,
can I have a finished slice of that roast beef, please?
say something
I'd say, fuck you, go away.
like this.
I'd be glad to carve you that. Thinner slices are more tender, though. Would that be all right? You can always come back up for more.
Okay.
I could, but I really don't want to walk that fucking much. That's why I went to a buffet. Like, you stop one fucking time, you load up your plate, you sit the fuck down.
Of course, if the guest insists on a thicker slice,
then I will
honor the
follow their
request.
requests.
No matter what the topic of your conversation has been or what size slice you served, you will end each guest contact with the same phrase.
How's that for you?
That's fine, thanks.
Ask
Is that fine? So if you say something like that's fine, or thank you for coming in to the, like, thank you for eating here this evening, like do those qualify, or are those the kind of thing that would get you, like, I remember at Walmart they would say like you're getting coached when a manager would get pissed off at you and say something about something stupid you said or did?
asking,
Would that be like a coaching moment?
how's that? Makes sure guests are happy with the slice they receive. If they're not, or if they also want a slice of a different meat, you can correct the situation promptly. Guests will sometimes ask you questions about the food we serve and how we prepare it. To be ready
for that, you say it's none of your goddamn business because it's our fucking company and we run it our goddamn way. Seriously, why are people asking questions about meat that's been sitting on the counter in a steam table for like an hour and a half? It's meat that's been sitting in this fucking steam table. Welcome to the country buffet. Get your shit and sit, exactly, like, get your fucking food, sit the fuck down, and get the fuck out of my goddamn face. It's 100 fucking degrees in this stupid fucking uniform, and my head is fucking pounding from the goddamn music they have blaring during some of these dine-in moments. Please, make it fucking stop.
for these questions.
He just got done sucking somebody off in the bathroom. Don't mind him.
Make the most of
Seriously, he has like the gay guy bathroom glory hole mustache.
opportunities to learn
And just like that, this video is gonna get removed.
about our menu items. If you are asked a question you can't answer, find someone who can answer it. The nearest manager is usually a good place to start.
We're going to ask the manager whether or not it's okay for us to serve people warm food from a steam table. My question is this, like, what fucking questions could you possibly ask about meat that's been sitting there that looks perfectly fine? Like, there's no sign of rot, there's no sign of mold or any sort of damage to it. So I don't get why the fuck you want to ask. Like, what is there? Has this meat been in a factory that has nuts in it? Get the fuck out of my face with that. No. Oh god, Boogie Nights, oh god.
Your third shift duty is
I've
maintaining
heard of that movie,
the
but
carving
never seen
station.
it.
As you carve and serve meat, your station quickly loses the cleanliness and appeal it had when the restaurant opened.
How the fuck does that happen if you use one knife to cut meat? Think about it. You're cutting only two different kinds of meat, pork and beef. The only way your station could really get dirty is if someone walked up and just vomited all over the fucking place, or if they just started sneezing the fuck out of all the food that's right there at the cooking stations.
Throughout your shift, you'll complete routine cleaning and maintenance tasks to return your station to its original appearance.
Yeah, sanitize the shit out of that meat.
Here are
Like, dip that shit in hand sanitizer.
some of the tasks you'll complete. Wipe grease from the carving board with a paper towel. Grease and meat scraps spoil the appearance of your station.
Makes sense so far.
Wipe them away frequently. Discard the used paper towels in the wastebasket immediately.
You mean to tell me I can't just let them pile up in my fucking station to the point where it looks like someone just got done having a fucking flu?
Keep the wastebasket
That's a
in a
shame.
spot that is. Then, wipe the carving board, front board, and stainless steel surfaces with a clean, sanitized towel. In between groups of guests, to wipe your carving knives and chef's forks with your clean, sanitized towel.
That way you can get rubbing alcohol on the fucking blade and sanitize the meat, because God knows how long it's been sitting there before we put it in the steam table.
Keep an eye on the walls, mirrors, sneeze guards, and floors around your station to make
Why the fuck are the walls your responsibility? Who the fuck is doing shit to the walls right behind the goddamn table? Like, I really want to know, like, who the fuck is doing shit to these fucking walls? What the fuck is happening? Like, what the fuck is happening to these fucking walls that's resorting to you having to sanitize them? You're cutting fucking meat, for fuck's sake. Why do you need to do that? What made this necessary?
sure they stay clean. If they aren't, use the time between guests to clean them.
And if there is no time between guests, your ass can stay the fuck behind for after hours and clean the whole goddamn restaurant.
Or spills immediately by guarding the area personally or putting up a wet
Well, someone masturbated all over the floor. Someone had a cum shot on the ground, for fuck's sake. One of those people from the bathroom couldn't hold it.
floor sign until the spill can be cleaned up.
Seriously, what is that though? Milkshake? Like, either someone threw up milkshake or someone spilled a glass of milk. Yes, I thought you were to the restaurant. It was the goddamn tile fucker, that's why. He tried to fuck the floor tiles.
Damp mopping the area with hot, soapy water, and leaving the wet floor sign in place until the area is completely dry.
But how do you know if it's dry? What do you have someone do? Run across the floor every couple hours just to see whether or not it's dry because they slip and crack their head open and they know it's still wet? Because really, realistically speaking, if you have like a well-ventilated area, you don't really know how long it takes to dry because you don't really know how much liquid was spilled on the ground. Pretty decent day. I had a good Saturday off. Tomorrow off. Gonna go out this coming weekend with Kate's family. We're all gonna meet at a restaurant because I finally get to like meet some of her family that I haven't really seen a whole lot of times because mainly work's got in the way. So we're gonna be doing that next weekend. And the weekend after that, I want to make it a point to go in for some overtime because Daddy needs that money.
Be sure to wash your hands after performing every cleaning task.
You mean to tell me I can't just leave my hands completely filthy before I serve people food? How dare you?
Rinse out your towels frequently in sanitizing solution. Towels that aren't sanitized frequently not only are unappetizing to look at, but they also leave streaks on the stainless steel.
They also allow mold to form on your knives and other materials in the building, which could then be used to have the health department close our ass down.
Maintaining the carving station includes
Ooh, shiny knife. This looks like he's like assessing his odds of killing someone. This is the kind of shit people do in Call of Duty when they pick up a weapon in campaign. You just see them like flourishing it for a minute, like they're trying to figure out what they can use it for.
maintaining carving knives.
Maybe I can kill that fuck over at table 6 that keeps looking at me funny.
To keep your knives sharp and ready to carve, you use a grooved steel rod called, appropriately, the steel doesn't actually sharpen the knife. It hones it by aligning microscopic burrs on the edge of the blade.
So it acts like it's a sharpener, but it's a sharpener that's only quasi-effective.
Cutting about 10 to 15 slices of meat, you will notice that your knife isn't cutting as easily as it was when it was first sharpened. It's then that you'll use the steel to restore the knife's edge. Here's how to use the steel. Note that the process is described for right-handed carvers. If you are left-handed, reverse the process. Before you start, put a carver's protective glove on each hand.
Yeah, put some chainmail on your fucking piggies.
Hold the steel in your left hand. Hold the steel so the point is up. You
Jesus.
will keep the steel's tip up throughout this process.
And put it right near your fucking head. That way if someone gets right behind you and punches you in the back of the head by accident, you can stab yourself through the fucking brain.
Hold the knife in your right hand.
And stab with your left.
Place the blade of the knife at the base of the steel on the side furthest from you. The cutting edge should be facing up. Blade up the steel, working left to right. Make sure the entire blade is drawn across the steel.
Otherwise, you're going to have that one dull section that's going to be really hard to hack through that one motherfucker's neck that's been staring at you the whole night.
Next, blade of the knife at the tip of the steel on the side closest to you.
Right.
Again, the cutting edge should face up. Draw the blade down left to right. This hones the other side of the blade's cutting edge. Repeat this process several times on each side of the cutting edge.
So basically just stroke the blade across the fucking thing from side to side several times on each end.
Draw the blade over the clean, sanitized towel lying on the carving counter. Do not hold the towel in your left hand. Your carving knives are sharp enough to slice not only through the towel, but fingers. Remember, knives are never taken to the dish room for cleaning. Once you have wiped the steel with your clean, sanitized towel, return it to its appropriate place.
In your holster.
Your fourth shift duty is assisting the guest's flow is light.
Looks like he was drawing a fucking knife out of his pocket.
When there are no guests at your station and you're caught up on your own tasks, you'll assist line attendants. Your final shift duty is doing whatever it takes to take care of the guests.
Even if it means you have to watch their 5 screaming fucking children they've left in the restaurant for several hours while they go on a coke binge. Dull knives are more likely to cut you whilst cooking.
At Old Country Buffet, serving guests is our #1 priority. You have many opportunities throughout your shift to lend a helping hand to our guests.
Even if it's inside the pants, and usually involves you to wash your hands profusely afterwards.
Every time you offer that
How else are you going to get a tip? No pun intended.
helping hand, chances are you increase guests' satisfaction with his or her visit. Before we leave your shift duties, let's take a minute or two to look closely at something you need to be aware of every minute you're on the job. Safety. As a carver, you work in an area with a high potential for accidents. Sharp knives, grease from the hand, and the rush of a busy shift can sometimes combine to create a disaster. That's why you need to always work safely. Here are a few things to keep in mind. Treat your knives with respect. They are razor sharp, honed to an edge that cuts through meat with only a little pressure. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter to the knife if it's cutting through a hand or your finger. Don't grab for a falling knife. Let it hit the floor. In your haste to prevent it from falling, you stand a 50-50 chance of grabbing the blade, not the handle. Take extra time and care when you're washing knives. When both your hands and the knives are wet, it's easy to slip if you're hurrying. Slow down and complete the job safely. Never place knives in bus tubs, Lexans, or sinks full of soapy water. Use only sharp knives. Believe it or not, dull knives are more dangerous than sharp knives. Because you have to work harder to get a dull knife to cut,
You might push it through too fast.
yourself or a guest are much greater.
Especially if they keep asking you for exact change. If not as a warning, they're creepy and a Mr. Delicious gives me Ted Bundy videos. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that sounds fucked up.
Finally, be aware at all times of where the hands are.
Keep your fucking hands the fuck away from my goddamn knife. If I see you reaching for it again, I'm going to take out your fucking fingers.
Without realizing it, guests may move their hands in the path of your knife. Keep an eye out for this.
What the fuck is the guest doing that they're sticking their hands that damn close to where there's a fucking knife at? That's the question I want to know. Like, I don't get how